I'm about to tell you exactly what you came here for, the story behind the title you clicked. The truth about how I traveled to the very first human civilization and discovered that the people living there somehow already knew who I was. I didn't expect to witness anything extraordinary, and I definitely didn't expect to hear my own name spoken by people who existed thousands of years before I was even born. This story begins with curiosity, but it quickly turns into something that changed the way I see time, humanity, and my own identity. And by the end, you'll understand why I can't stop thinking about what they told me. It all started with my research project on early human settlements, the kind of assignment no one volunteers for because it requires endless reading and hours of analyzing dull archaeological data. But one night, while scanning some satellite-mapped terrain, I noticed strange geometric patterns under a desert region where nothing should have been. They looked artificial, too straight, too clean, too intentional to be natural formations. Something in my chest tightened, and I knew I had just found something important. The university approved an expedition, though they assumed I'd return with nothing but sunburn and disappointment. Instead, what I found was a smooth stone doorway buried under layers of sand, engraved with carvings unlike anything in our historical records. When I touched the center symbol, a spiral intersecting a line, the ground vibrated gently, like a distant engine warming up. Before I could step back, light poured from the carving, expanding outward and swallowing my vision completely. When my eyes adjusted, the desert was gone, replaced by a wide valley surrounded by green hills and flowing rivers. The air felt warmer, cleaner, almost untouched by pollution or industry, and there were round mud structures scattered across the valley like a settlement straight out of a history book. I knew immediately I wasn't looking at a reconstruction or simulation. This was a real place, alive with smoke rising from cooking fires and people moving through the fields. And deep down, I also knew I was no longer in my own time. People noticed me standing near the glowing stone archway, the same structure I had uncovered, but now fully built and intact. They wore simple clothing made of woven plant fibers and decorated with beads, and they stared at me with a look I didn't understand. Some were afraid, but most seemed strangely calm, as if they were expecting me. Then an older man stepped forward, touched his chest, and said my name clearly, perfect pronunciation. No hesitation. I froze, because there was no logical explanation for this man knowing who I was. I asked how he knew me, and he only smiled before guiding me toward the village center where a group of elders waited. As we walked, children peeked from behind huts, whispering and repeating my name like it was some kind of title. Every part of me wanted to run back through the arch, but the light had faded, and the stone looked inert now, as if it had completed its job and shut itself down. The elders invited me to sit around a fire, offering food that tasted simple but fresh, and they spoke in a language that felt ancient yet familiar. Somehow, I understood most of it, as if my mind was adjusting to their speech naturally. They told me they were the first people, the ones who built the earliest settlement from which all others would eventually spread. They also said I was the traveler, the one their ancestors told stories about, someone who would arrive from the sky carrying knowledge. I told them I wasn't a messenger or a prophet, but just a researcher who touched the wrong rock. They exchanged glances, not confused but patient, almost amused by my denial. The eldest woman leaned forward and explained that everything in time repeats, and certain people are destined to appear more than once across history. According to them, I had visited before long before and taught them how to farm more efficiently and track the seasons. That made no sense because I had never been here before in my entire life. They insisted otherwise and showed me a smooth slate stone covered in symbols, drawings, and what looked like early writing. My heart jolted when I saw a carving of a human figure wearing clothes just like mine, standing near the same stone archway. And beneath it, etched in simple strokes, was my exact name. I told myself there had to be a rational explanation, maybe a coincidence, maybe misinterpretation, but the evidence kept stacking against logic. They said I would return multiple times across their generations and that each appearance meant their society would advance. I asked them what I supposedly taught them, and they listed things I had never said in my life, including how to read astronomical patterns and how to create a crude calendar system. My head pulsed with confusion because everything they believed about me didn't match anything I had ever done. Before I could ask more, a loud horn echoed across the valley and the villagers rushed to the perimeter. I followed them and saw a massive group approaching from the hills, carrying weapons made of bone, stone, and sharpened wood. The elders explained these were rival clans who wanted control of the fertile valley, and they were much stronger in numbers. The villagers looked at me with expectation again, as if I was the key to their safety. I tried to explain that I wasn't a warrior and didn't know any ancient combat strategies. But they insisted I always help them in times of conflict. They asked me what to do, and panic twisted my stomach because I didn't even know how many attackers there were. But I noticed something the others didn't: a narrow pass near the river where the enemy troops had to squeeze through before entering the valley. If the villagers positioned themselves there, they could defend with fewer people. I suggested they move quickly and take defensive positions near the river, and everyone listened immediately, as though my words carried authority. The elders signaled the fighters, and within minutes, they arranged themselves just as I advised. When the rival clan arrived, they were forced into the narrow path exactly as I predicted, and the villagers managed to drive them back after a short but intense clash. The victory was real, not myth, and everyone credited me for saving them. After the battle, the villagers cheered and celebrated, but I couldn't join them because a heavy realization struck me. Maybe I had influenced them after all. Maybe my presence in the past had always been part of history. If I gave them strategies, knowledge, or ideas, then I might have accidentally shaped early human civilization without meaning to. That meant the timeline I came from was already influenced by my own actions here. I needed answers, so I went back to the elders and asked how they first heard stories about the traveler. They led me to a cave marked with handprints and ancient symbols, lit by torches that flickered against the stone. Inside, the walls were filled with drawings that looked thousands of years old, yet one image caught my breath: a figure standing inside a circle of swirling light. It was the same portal I had come through. The elder woman explained that the portal wasn't magic, but a path of time built by people long before their own era. She said those people believed time wasn't a line but a loop, and certain individuals were meant to move across it. I asked if they knew who built it, and she shook her head slowly, saying the builders disappeared long before the first humans formed families or villages. Their disappearance, she said, might be connected to why I appear across different periods. The cave chamber extended deeper, as she guided me to a large stone slab covered in carvings that looked newer than the others. As I examined the symbols, she told me something that made my skin tighten. This slab was made after my first visit. It recorded my warnings about a future threat, something destructive, something that would erase entire civilizations. When I translated the last line, my stomach dropped because it said, "The traveler comes from the time of the great ending." I didn't understand what that meant until she asked if my world was peaceful or if it stood on the edge of collapse. I hesitated before admitting that tensions, climate issues, and technological risks were rising in ways that worried many scientists. She nodded, as though this confirmed something she had always known. Then she asked me if I had returned to warn them before, and if not, then why was the warning carved? I stared at the symbols, realizing I might not be the first version of myself to travel here. Maybe a future version of me had come long before and left this message. Maybe that version experienced something catastrophic and tried to prevent early humans from repeating it. But the carvings kept asking the same question: what causes the great ending? Before I could decide what to tell them, the ground trembled softly, and a familiar glow flashed outside the cave. I ran out and saw the stone archway activating again, bright lights swirling inside as if responding to my presence. This was my chance to return home, to find out if anything had changed, or if the future still carried whatever disaster the slab warned about. But the villagers gathered behind me, calling my name, thanking me, asking when I would come again. I wanted to answer them, to reassure them, to explain everything I didn't understand myself. But the light started pulling gently, like a tide drawing me in, and my body felt like it was drifting out of the world. I took one last look at the valley, the river, the people who believed in me long before I existed. Then the light swallowed everything. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the present, standing in the desert beside the same stone archway half buried in sand. But something was different. The sky looked hazier, the air hotter, and in the distance I saw smoke rising from areas where no towns or factories had been before. I checked my phone, and the date didn't match what I remembered. It was 2 years ahead of the day I left. My heart pounded as I realized time hadn't paused while I was gone. I checked the news, reading headline after headline, and every story felt like the early stages of something bigger, something unsettling. Climate disasters worsening, political tensions rising, strange scientific anomalies being reported more often. I couldn't prove anything yet, but the warnings carved in that cave kept echoing in my mind. And as the sun dipped behind the dunes, one question kept repeating louder than the rest. What if the great ending wasn't far away anymore? If you want more stories like this, subscribe to Time Traveling Stories, where we explore the unknown, the forgotten, and the impossible. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story, where time itself decides our path.